Big LEZ'S League, an all rugby league experience.
Hey there, welcome back to Big LEZ'S League, an all rugby league experience. Continuing the season preview series, getting into the Seagulls, the Dolphins and the Dragons today with none other than my good mate, Brandon Savage from the Supercoach experience. Mate, what's doing?
Not much, just, recording podcasts like we do for our free time. This hobby that we've got into, and all of a sudden it takes up all our free time.
That's it.
The footy takes up our enjoyment time, and the podcast just takes it up even more. But yes, I'm happy to be here, and Big LEZ'S League.
That's
Big
it.
Les.
That's it.
You watch a Big Les show back in the day?
Mate, you know what? It's funny. The nickname actually came from the Big Les show because we used to watch it in year 5 and we were all obsessed with it, right? So one day we were watching it in year 5. We're watching it for one of the wet weather days because you had to go inside and go on laptops and things like that if it was wet weather back at our primary school, St Andrews, shout out. We were inside. We chucked it on the big projector thing. And we were all just sitting down like we were watching a science video, except it was Big Les and Sassy the Sasquatch going at it. Our teacher at the time walked in, was like, "What the hell is this?" Like, "Oh, this is a cartoon." "Oh, it's mad. That's good that you found a cartoon that you like." Les goes, "What the fuck?" And she just biggest look of surprise and so scared. We weren't allowed to go into that classroom anymore. But that's where the name came from because I used to do the Big Les voice all right. Can't do it as well now.
Yeah, okay.
But I used to with the glasses on as well. I sort of looked like Big Les. I was a bit bigger
God.
back then as well. So fit the bill a little bit more than I do now. But managed to keep the nickname. So
Have you told that story on the
I
podcast?
have.
Oh,
So
okay.
I recently told it with Tom. Tom Yeager interview coming soon. Stay tuned for that.
Oh, okay.
So not many people know that origin story, so bit of an exclusive for yourself there as well. I think this one will come out first anyway, so you might be getting the exclusive right here. Obviously, a little bit of a different studio setup to what we're used to too, in the Hectic Fred sort of setup here with the boys. They record the basketball show in here, so nice little setup the boys have here. Not too bad.
Like an 85-inch TV just sitting there as well.
Yeah, I know. We should really utilise that a
Live
bit
stream
more.
the footy.
Like Joe Rogan, just get a guy in the background to get up all the stats up and everything. It'd be perfect. Obviously different studio setup. We recorded a podcast here before for your podcast as well on the Burst. Walk us through a little bit of that.
Well, obviously the Supercoach experience is the name. We primarily are Supercoach, but I've tried to dive into the NRL side of things, and it did well last year. Obviously, the NRL is just so... There's so much popularity within the game at the moment, and if you are a diehard Supercoach fan, you're a diehard NRL fan, and I just feel like I know so much about the game that I just want to talk about it more and more. Yep. So it did really well for us last year, and it's a lot of fun. And I feel like it's kind of like when a player plays number 6, they're a really good number 6, but they want to delve off and be a number 7 somewhere and run a team. That's what I feel like I'm doing with my NRL show.
You're doing a Jerome Luai, are you?
That's what I'm doing. I'm probably not as good as Jerome Luai, but I like to say I'm probably more like a Luke Brooks.
Oh.
Like he's probably for 10 years has shown he probably can't do it as good as some other people, but can do a solid number 6 role.
Yeah, well, look, mate. If you get anywhere near the Luke Brooks sort of tag up there at Manly, then you're doing all right. How did Supercoach experience start? I don't think we've had this discussion before.
Oh, my God. This is a story. Me and my mate, Mikey, so it started off as the Mike and Sav show in 2017. It was a long time ago, before COVID. A lot of people started within COVID. It was before COVID. We started live streaming into a Facebook group called the NRL Supercoach Addicts, and it was just we just live streamed because we like talking about it. And I just got the phone up, and Mikey was like, "No, don't do it, man. It's annoying." But people were watching. We got 120 people watching the first time we went there, and it was just me and him with my phone. And then we kept doing it. It turned into this weekly thing where we'd live stream every Tuesday or Sunday night and just talk about Supercoach. And people tuned in, and we got this full production with the iPad recording the live stream. And it was a really fun time. And as a 18-year-old, 19-year-old, I used to rap.
Yeah, here you go. Yeah.
Yeah, no, not even kidding. I had 6 songs play on 96.1, which was the big radio station at the time. And I ended up... I had all the equipment to record a podcast, and I heard about podcasts. So we turned that live stream into a podcast. It took a while to get going. Like, I was really cringe at the start. I've still got videos online, which are awful. But I just persisted because I loved it. And I love the production side of things. I love talking Supercoach, and I got better at both. And now it just feels like it's a job. It's not quite a job. It's still my second job, but working closer and closer to make it full time. Like I would say, like in a year or two, I could get there.
Well, it's sort of where I want to be as well, to be honest. Like I sort of want to get to the point where, I'm doing this as my job as well.
Yeah.
Working towards that stage, and I'm a bit far away from that yet. Just sort of starting to hit my stride a little bit now.
Yeah.
But, like it's definitely the dream with this sort of thing. And, obviously you get your, close friends. And in my case, my parents, because I started so young.
Yeah.
Saying, why don't you go into radio? Radio is the thing. But like people don't realize that like this is the better forum. You can do what you want. You can say what you want. You can publish to Spotify. It's always accessible as well. Whether it's radio is not always accessible. So I think that this is like the new radio. I think it will be for sure.
It's even better because there's more avenues you can get your income from with podcasting. Like I think we've got like 4 or 5 different revenue streams that we can get money from. Whereas if you're working at a radio station, you don't have that creative freedom to do what you want, and then you're getting a weekly wage.
Yep.
So the motivation to do well in radio is probably a lot less than, let's say, doing a podcast, doing it by yourself. I'm an apprentice Sparky, actually.
There you go. Wow.
So I'm going to try and finish my apprenticeship first.
Yep.
32-year-old apprentice, by the way.
Wow, there you go. Yeah.
And then hopefully do 2 days a week on both.
Yeah.
And then, relax for the rest of the week.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the dream.
Yeah, well, that's perfect, mate. It's definitely a reasonable goal, and obviously you're obviously got a bit of a kickstart on that already. So excited to see what happens and where this sort of goes down as well for your podcast, mate. Super keen. Look, let's get into the preview because we've got a few exciting teams to talk about. And I was sort of saying this morning with the Strictly Footy podcast when we were recording our episode, like, yes, you got other podcasts that have better episodes on paper. You got the Cast Patrol episode who had the Rabbitohs and the Melbourne Storm and all the Tigers. But, I think with these ones, not having the better sides is quite good in the sense that you get to go in deep into why they might not be as successful or why they might not be as successful going into the. I think it's like better to talk about because there's more to talk about.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's get into the Seagulls. Obviously your team, mate.
You couldn't quite get Tom and Eddie from Hello Sport, so you settled for third best.
I know, well, exactly right. Don't sell yourself short, mate. Don't sell yourself short. Mate, talk to me about the Seagulls. What's your read on them going into this year?
Yeah, it's a funny one. Every year I have so much hope, and then they just destroy my dreams every single year. Last year, I feel like they overachieved from what I expected.
Yep.
I think they ended up coming 6th, 5th?
7th.
7th, Jesus Christ. But they were fighting for the 4, so I was quite happy with where they're at. Turbo played 20 games last year. That was including the 2 finals games. So he was on the park for quite a bit of the season. So I'm quite proud of how they did last year and how they managed themselves. I feel like Anthony Seibold's doing a real good thing there. And I think what he's doing, look at last year, Tommy Talau, Lehigh Hopewade, Luke Brooks, all having career years. Tommy Turbo had probably one of his best years since his 2021 year as well. Like DCE is not slowing down. Hamoli Olakuatu is killing it. I just think they've got a side where everyone is overachieving and over-delivering on their pay packet. We saw Nathan Brown come in last year and do a massive job for them. And I think this is the recipe for a premiership side. I think if anything, we're lacking maybe a solid hooker because Lachlan Croker's just been in and out quite a bit. But apart from that, I'm really happy with the side and where it's at the moment. We're definitely in a premiership window, in my opinion.
100%, mate. It's a really exciting side to look at. I can see Manly being quite successful this year, just off the back of if Turbo obviously stays on the field and, how they go injury-wise this season. Obviously, it wasn't just Turbo. It was Saab. It was a few other cats. Obviously, Garrick, I think, had an injury throughout the year as well.
A few HIAs for Garrick, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that, keeping everyone on the field is going to be really the key for them to be successful in 2025. And I think, we talked about ceilings and floors before on your podcast, mate. Yep. Like the ceiling for Manly, it is quite high going into this year. I'd even say a top 4 maybe ceiling for them. Would you agree in that?
100%. I think we shot ourselves in the foot by not getting there last year.
Yep.
There was a game against the Dolphins where Tommy Turbo got injured early in the season. We're on top of that game. We blew a few leads where we scored 3 tries and then just let the other team in. There was a Parramatta game where I went to earlier in the year where they let them get away with a win. But that Dolphins game, I remember that so vividly because I feel like they just deflated after Tommy Turbo got injured that game. But I think they readjusted pretty quickly after that. They learned to live without Tommy Turbo, and I think they've done really well at that, whereas in the past they haven't. And I just feel like Tommy Turbo's just staying on the field a lot more these days. So, yeah, very happy with where they're at. Their ceiling, definitely top 4. And I just feel like the only team I'm not confident that they can beat is the Penrith Panthers. But every other team, I'm so confident we can win.
And Melbourne as well?
Yeah, like Manly have the wood over Melbourne.
Okay.
Last year we beat them at home. We also lost to them as well. But Manly just have the style of game to ruffle the feathers of these bigger sides. Like the Melbournes, they don't like to get in the grind. They like to throw the ball around and beat you on the edges. And that's what they're good at. And I think that's why Anthony Seibold has done such a good job at putting this roster together and coming up with a style of play that suits them. I feel like some coaches like to play how the good teams are really successful. Like a lot of teams try to replicate Penrith and Melbourne, whereas the Manly Sea Eagles really play to their strengths, and their strengths are quick speed on the outside back. They got three of the top 5 running fastest in the game. So, get to their edges early, shift the ball, long kicking game in DCE, through the middle, backing up in support Tommy Turbo.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I think you mentioned obviously Tom Trbojevic and staying on the field, and when they were without him, obviously being able to handle that better. Big part of that's obviously Lehigh Hopewade, who walked into the side last year and was very successful. Obviously, there's been a lot of rumor and chat around Tom Trbojevic moving into the centres. What do you think about it? Obviously, to accommodate Lehigh Hopewade.
I've just seen your best 17 and full squad, and it does have Lehigh at fullback. I hate it, to be honest. I think I understand that if you put Tommy at centre, he will still be involved. But I think just a fullback, it just gives him that full license. Yep. I don't want Tommy Turbo to be restricted at all. And I think by restricting him just because of injury, you're creating another opportunity for another injury. If he has to make 40, 30 tackles a game at centre, I think you're opening the doors up for a shoulder injury, which could potentially end his season a lot quicker. Yep. So I think Tommy is the fullback, and I also think with the outside back depth, it suits the side for him to be a fullback. And he's an elite fullback. If you've got an elite fullback in your side, you're winning more games than you're not. Okay, so let's obviously have this side on paper. What changes do you make then? Obviously, Tom Trbojevic goes to fullback. What other changes are you sort of making around the back line? Around the back line? Yeah. I'd probably shift Tommy to fullback, Lehigh to the wing, and I do like Garrick on the wing, but I just think Lehigh and Saab are too good to drop. So I'll persist with Ruben Garrick in the centres. I think Ruben Garrick's still a pretty good centre. Got to work on his defence, obviously, but I think his yardage game and he works well. So I like him in the centres, and I think you've got to keep cooler there. The unfortunate one to miss out there, Tommy Talau, after having such a good season last year. It's so unfortunate, but a lot of these guys are injured pretty often, so I think you could pretty much promise him some time during the season. It's crazy how we look at this side, best 17, and either way, whether I've got Tom in the centres and Lehigh at fullback, or if Tom's at fullback, like Tommy Talau still doesn't have a spot, which is crazy with how consistently he was playing first grade last year too. Yeah, it's crazy, and I think I really agree with dropping Cooler. Yep. I thought he had not shown much at centre, but I think he's also one of the better defensive centres in the game as well. So I think that can't be overlooked. Tommy Talau played awesome last year, but if he keeps it up again this year, then he'll prove himself to be undroppable. Yeah. And I think there will be a point where someone does miss out on a spot. I think Jason Saab is probably under the most pressure. But then again, he's such a game breaker that I don't want him being anywhere near the conversation of being dropped.
I think Saab could be one of the better wingers at his best
I
in the
agree.
competition. Like he's so good and silky, and so much speed to burn out there. Probably one of the faster players in the comp as well. Big Saab. So it'll be interesting to see how they look. But I think. Yeah, look, for me, Tom Trbojevic at centre, I think that you talked about him being restricted there. I think that it's not so much about that these days as well. Like, centres have plenty of freedom to roam these days, particularly those who are given that roaming licence. And, we saw Tom Trbojevic do it in the World Cup too, where he was roaming and going in those arrow sets, roaming at the back and sort of trying to find opportunity there. And obviously he came up, with the cookies there, obviously with Did and obviously those left side raids. So, I think that you could still get away with Tom sitting at right centre and obviously coming into Rome. But I agree with you, the defensive load might prove to be a little bit too much in that regard. So,
like, how stupid would you feel if you put him in centre, he played all right, wasn't as involved as he was, and then, game 5 or 6, he does his hammy anyway. Like, you just feel so stupid. They're elite athletes. They're all running very similar loads. Obviously, the fullbacks have a lot more, but I think Tommy, just as an experienced elite player, out the back as well defensively.
Yep.
I just think he's the best guy, and I understand the shouts for him in center or the wing, but I don't know. I just can't buy it.
Yeah,
it makes me nervous.
I disagree. I think that attacking wise, it ticks all of the boxes because of that roaming license and what he can do there and what we've seen from him there. Just defensively, though, you're starting to sort of push me in that direction of obviously it is quite a big load, and how much can he actually handle before an injury arises? And if Seabold does put him there and he does get injured, then it is on Seabold.
Exactly, and you've wasted, like, say you're 3 from 6, and hasn't had much of a hand in them games. Them games could be the difference between making the top 4 at the end of the year, which proved crucial last year. I think just letting him get involved. And I understand, like, if he does play centre, he'll pretty much play fullback in attack.
Yeah.
Like, there's no doubt about that. But I just think you're complicating it too much for the youngsters. Tommy, just let him play what he knows.
Yeah, okay.
As well.
Yeah, if it's fair. Look, it's fair enough for sure. We'll have to wait and see what they go for. But look, from an attacking standpoint, purely looking at it from an attacking standpoint, I do like it. And I think that Lehigh, obviously, he's just a guy I don't want to leave out. And I probably want to develop him in his natural position too. Like, we'll talk about Newcastle. We're talking about Newcastle plenty in your podcast. But, an example is Newcastle with Fletcher Sharp. Like, I don't want to see him sit on the wing. I think that, if he's either at fullback or he's in cup, in my opinion at least, I think that, you've just got James Schiller, who's from the Raiders there, who's such a gun and deserves a spot in first grade. He deserved a spot in first grade even after being dropped by Ricky Slater. I just think that, he deserves to be there.
I guess with Newcastle, like, James Schiller is better on the wing than Tyson Gamble is at 6 for the side, if that makes sense. And Fletcher Sharp is a weapon. I think, but they're moving Fletcher Sharp because he's an elite player into a key position. Yeah. Tom Trbojevic is the elite player, and you're moving him out of a key position. That's what I don't like.
Yeah, look, it's fair enough. Yeah. Let's see what happens with this back line. But yeah, look,
I could be wrong.
Yeah. Be wrong. Look, I mean, it's good. It's actually good that we're back and forth. So we can hold each other accountable at the end of the year. But I'm keen to see what Seabold has in mind. But yeah, I think that you could still get the same out of Tom from an attacking standpoint if you do have him there. In that centre jersey. Going into the rest of the side, mate, obviously another big call, which I think is probably more justifiable than moving Tom, is moving Jake. I think that Jake moves into the front row going into next year. I think that he'll play very similar to his origin role. He'll have more minutes, but I think that he probably bashes out the first 20 and then comes on for the last 25 or something like that. I think that his load gets reduced. So I just don't want to see Jake become that battering ram for them, particularly going into those peak years of his career. I just hate to see him become that guy for Manly.
Yeah, I don't mind the move of him to front row. I think he's become very one-dimensional as time has gone on, and maybe that is because of the workload. Yeah. Maybe just simplifying his role, letting him run. He is a decent runner of the ball, but he just tackles his ass off. So I think having that front rower there and having your dominant front rower in Paseka, having you've got Tavanga here at number 13. I think he just adds something and adds a bit of spark, a bit of uncertainty in the defense, and then you can have the big guys like Sipley, Brown, Bullymore. That's just like that. That is pure speed off the bench. Let Jake, Tavanga, Paseka take the sting out of the game, and then Brown, Sipley, and Bullymore just run havoc.
Exactly, and you're still getting that level of X factor, as you said before, with Jazz at 13, that unpredictability, bit of ball playing experience at 9 as well. And, having Tavanga there at 13 means that, even if we did have Tommy Talau, say, in the back line, maybe Lehigh could sit at 14 and play that sort of role because you've got another hooker there to sit in cover of Lockie Croker. You can sort of afford to go down that route as well. But more so as well, Jazz, I've just rated him so much as that he's very vocal. Like, not a lot of people realise he's a very vocal guy through the middle too. And even though he's not the biggest guy on the field, I think he'll definitely have a say there at 13 of where people should be and obviously how the attackers run there from a middles sort of perspective too. So I like Jazz there at 13. I think that probably suits where Manly are going and the football they should be playing next season. Obviously, we mentioned the bench guys, Brown and Bullymore, 2 massive seasons last year. Can they replicate the same in 2025?
I hope so. Nathan Brown's an elite player. Played Origin a couple of years ago. Obviously lost his spark at Parramatta, but I feel like that was situational. I'm really excited to see how he backs it up this year. He's become a cult hero off the back fence. Has been his trademark. And I really like how you've put Josh Alloway out of the side. I think these slow forwards, these big, slower forwards, we're probably past them. And the guys like Bullymore, I think Bullymore is one of the most important players coming off the bench through the middle. I love that bench, and I'm very excited to see what they could do. They've got depth in Alloway to come in if they need him. But
Takiaho I've left out as well, which was very hard to do. But look, I agree. Like, the more mobile bench, it is becoming more prominent. You've got Sipley there who can be that big guy off the bench, and it's a lot more well-rounded than, if we were to put one of these other bigger guys on the bench, even in a Tarsi James, for example. You're missing out on a bit of speed X factor, and what Nathan Brown brings just personality-wise, coming onto the field and just going absolutely ham and not giving a damn about his body is just unreal. I just realised before I said Ricky Slater, I meant Ricky Stewart.
Yeah, I kind of like sat there for a bit. I was like, did he mess that up? I thought you realised you messed it up and we just moved on.
Yeah, no, I just got that then. Mate, Manly, where do you see them sitting on the ladder?
Fourth.
Fourth?
Yeah, I think fourth. Obviously last year, the Roosters, Melbourne, Penrith, and the Sharks were solidified in the top 4, and I think they deservedly were there.
Yep.
I think the Roosters obviously drop out. The other 3 have a really good chance to stay there. Obviously, the year can pan out a lot differently to how we expect, but just based on rosters and who's improving and whatnot, I think there's one spot up for grabs in the 4, and I think Manly are the most likely side to go in there. This could be bias, I guess, but a lot of the sides that were around there have lost a bit.
Yep.
Like we saw the Cowboys fight it out. They've lost quite a bit. We saw the Bulldogs. I feel like they've gained a bit, but the jury's out for them, for me.
Yep.
And, Newcastle, I don't see them making the 8.
Yeah, okay.
So I think Manly, it's theirs to lose.
Yeah, I agree. I think the comp is so even now, though, as well, that, we can sit here and make predictions, but, I honestly couldn't give you an answer with a straight face or a straight answer, mind you, of, who I think is going to be where on the ladder as well. I can sit here and try and predict it, but, we could sit here at the end of the year, as you said, and just be, completely wrong, and it's completely flipped the reverse of what we think it's going to be.
Sure.
So, that's Manly, mate. Anything else on Manly before we head over to the Dolphins?
There was another guy that I just want to bring up. I actually don't know his name. He debuted last year. He came off the bench in the middle. It's not a Tarsi James. It was the other guy that made the debut. I'm really sorry for bringing this up on short notice, but I've just noticed it.
Just trying to have a little bit of a think. Is he a development guy?
He must be.
Yeah, he's not in my top 30 list. Let's have a little look.
I remember his name was stuck in my head for months.
Yeah.
Resign, losses, gains, current squad. Here we go. Tarsi James, Cooler, Lafayette, Tony Large. Caleb Navale.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
He came on last year, and I really liked what I saw from Caleb Navale. So I think he's one who, if they develop him at some point this year, I don't expect him to play a massive role this year, but he's one guy who I really want to get some game time this year because I really liked what I saw from him.
Yeah, real strong front rower. I think came from the Tigers.
Did
yes.
he?
Yes,
Yeah,
I think
okay.
so. So yeah, really strong front rower. I really rate him too. So he might be one there for sure. But look, again, we go back to what we were talking about before with the bench and how you structure that. It might be a toe Sipley missing out. We'll have to wait and see, mate. But yeah, look, exciting. Definitely exciting. They've got a few young guys that could really jump out of the ground going into next year. I mention this guy every year, but I may as well throw one at you now that you've thrown one back at me. I like Raymond Tuimolo Vega.
Yeah.
He,
I was just looking at him, eh?
yeah, he is a gun. I
Yep.
love everything about him. The trials was outstanding from him last
Yep.
year. If he can replicate that, he's going to be very hard to leave out again. I think he started in the opening rounds in the back line and then came out, I believe.
Oh, I think he played like round 2 and 3 because
Yep.
Saab got injured in Vegas.
That's it.
But when he came in, he played really well. And if they can have him as a backup guy to the backup, because
Yeah.
Tommy Talau's obviously there, then they're doing really well. They've done really well to have that depth in the back line. Also, another one here that like really stands out. Joey Walsh, they've got
Yeah.
massive raps on him in the preseason. Obviously, Daly Cherry-Evans,
Yep.
his future is up in air. So hopefully he gets some game time over the Origin period if he does play Origin. There's also, I have question marks around Gordon Chan Kum Tong.
Okay.
I actually don't think he's going to be the guy that they go forward with.
Mm-hmm.
I think his service out of dummy half is a little bit slow. And I think in today's game, you really need to have quick, great service, or you've got to be really good out of the ruck. And he hasn't showed enough for me. He's a cult hero for Manly. But, yeah, I think that's a problem area for me in the hooker spot. Jake Simpkins been okay, but I don't know if he's the answer either.
Yeah, wow. Okay. We'll have to wait and see. I think that Simpkins probably going to be the favourite to get the 14.
Yep.
But yeah, wow. Gordon Chan Tong. We'll have to wait and see what happens with him, eh? Let's go into the Dolphins. Obviously, last year finished 10th, 11 wins, 13 losses. To be honest, mate, like I was looking at the Dolphins last year, you know, maybe that was the year that they cracked into the 8, the last year with Wayne. Didn't eventuate that way, but fuck, they were close, weren't they?
Yeah, they were so good. I think their roster was like worse than the year before, just based on injuries.
Yep.
But they really dug in, and I think this year's a massive test for them. I think the Dolphins thrive against the wall behavior, and Wayne's created that culture. I don't think they're going to drop off as much as people expected them to. But yeah, I am worried just because of although their roster's building quite nicely.
Yeah,
I just think key positions, they're not quite there in the key positions, especially in 7 and 6 at the moment, but they've got a lot of promise there.
So, and obviously, you guys that wouldn't have seen that if you weren't in the Roo crew, shout out to Rugby League Guru. He put it in the Roo crew when he was putting up his best 17s. I don't know if this one's out yet, but plenty of rumours around how this side is going to look. And there's a few ones that sort of have a few heads turning.
And I like the rumours I've seen as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get into a few of them. So my side is very different when you compare them to obviously the rumours. My side's more similar to last year. Obviously, you got Bostock on the wing. Still, you've obviously got Herbie and Avarillo in the centres. I've still got Cody at 5'8". Other than that, obviously, the only differences would be my front row is completely different to last year with Saifidi and Gilbert coming in. I've obviously got Kulakefu Finefuyaki from training footage. It looks like he's going to start. So I've got him right back row. And then Kurt Donohue's my number 14. I think that he's a non-negotiable in this team. And while, a lot of people might disagree with that, I think what I've seen from him, he is just so talented. And those games for Fiji, he just lights it up. I'm really excited about big Kurt Donohue. But the rumours, obviously the first one is around Bostock, potentially playing in the centres. What are your thoughts?
I loved it when I first heard it. Obviously, he's taken a massive step in the preseason and he's developing as a player. He's massive, he's tall, he's rangy, and I think he could really excel in the centre position. But I guess my problem is is centre more important than wing, or is wing more important than centre? And I feel like if he's taken another step, then that's a bad thing that they're moving him out of a position like wing. I feel like he could really, in my opinion, Campbell Graham, his best position is wing. And I think
Okay.
Scored like 4 tries for Australia on the wing.
Yeah.
In his debut. Was it something like that?
Yeah, it was something like that. I remember.
And I just find him such a much more valuable winger than he is a centre. But I think he excels at centre as well, and he's probably the best centre for the Rabbitohs. And I think this is going to be very similar. Jack Bostock's going to do really well in centre, but I think you're missing something by taking him off that wing position.
Right.
I guess the fact that I think Junior Tupou offers a lot as well on the wing.
Yeah.
I think that is probably the stinger for me. I think Bostock is probably a better option than Averillo in the centres, and Tupou is probably a better option than Averillo in the centres.
You know what? It's funny. Like Junior Tupou is probably the only rugby convert that's sort of really come and hit the ground running. And you know, he didn't even play that much first grade last year too. He was in and out of that Tigers team again and again and again. And obviously, when it was announced that he was signing with the Dolphins, they kept him out for a while. So
rightfully so, though.
Like
I think if you're the Tigers, you kind of got to.
Yeah, prepare for the future. But yeah, look, I'm excited for June Tupou. I'm keen. He is such a gun. He, as I said, one of the only rugby converts to really come and hit the ground running, and we might see a change in that too with big Marky Mark coming in and a few other guys. That centre that they've got at Melbourne is really good as well.
Yep.
But yeah, look, Junior Tupou, he's going to be exciting. I don't think he can excel at centre, hence why I think Bostock is going to move into the centres. But Tupou, he's probably going to be one of the more damaging wingers too. He's going to be very Jermaine Asako. I feel like that's going to be a pretty decent player comparison with a really outstanding passing game.
I agree. I guess my other worry is what side do you think that Bostock plays? Because if he plays left, Isaiah Katoa had his defensive issues last year. That's a problem to look at, that defensive edge.
Yes, it is actually. That's a good point. I think Herbie's probably, it looks like he's training on the right side. So the right side looks to be Kulakefu, Fina-Fuiaki, Herbie, and Jermaine Asako.
Yep.
The left side, at least, I haven't heard anything from back row, but I've got Colony Lemuelu there.
Yep.
And then I'd have him with, it sounds like Bostock and Tupou, which, it does spell dramas.
Worries me, but maybe they shift Isaiah Katoa to the right. I don't know, but I guess Jake Averillo is not much better defensively.
Yeah, so that's the big point to bring in as well. Averillo sounds like he's going to be playing 5'8".
Yep.
So that's going to be interesting to see, two guys that have their worries in defence. That's going to be interesting. Although, by the end of the season, Katoa's defence definitely improved.
Yeah.
So, and he was playing, I believe, right side too for Tonga, correct me if I'm wrong.
Probably was for Tonga, maybe not for the Dolphins. I'm not quite sure.
Anyway, I think he was out by the end of the year for the Dolphins anyway, so we wouldn't have been able to sort of get a read. But I think that Katoa for me, that's going to be a watch.
Yep.
Averillo at 6 though, I don't know. I don't rate it.
Yeah. Averillo's disappointed me. I really thought he'd kick on last year under Wayne. And obviously he didn't. And I think they moved him to 6 because he wasn't working at 3. I don't like that reasoning at all.
Yeah.
But like Cody Nikorima, how long has he got left? I think he's overperformed in the last couple of years. So I think they're just potentially waiting for him to really have his drop off. But I guess while he's playing well, do you just put him there, the experienced guy next to Isaiah Katoa?
I know that my Titans side is pretty full on. I've got AJ at 7 over Kieran, but I guess the argument for obviously having Kieran 4 and as your 7 is you have that experienced guy in there while you're figuring out what the plan is moving forward.
Yes.
So for the Dolphins side of things, a side that is more touted to be a top 8 team, I'd probably go for having Cody Nikorima there for the start of the year. He's not that old too. He's like 31. 32.
There you go.
So he's not actually that old whereby they need to have a plan now to replace him. So I think keeping him there for a bit, sort of sussing out how Kurt Donahue goes, because I think that he'll be the future of that club. I also think that you've got guys in here like Trey Fuller, like Sean O'Sullivan that will be in the spine somewhere. So just sort of figuring out where these sort of guys fit into the team. Sean O'Sullivan will be the watch then for me, because if Averillo doesn't work, I'd probably go SOS then. If you're totally against having Cody Nicarima at 5'8" and they want to move him into a utility role or wherever they want to move him, I think that SOS, the season that he had last year, is very underrated, and I think that he'd suit that 6 jersey well.
Yeah, he played really well last season, and he didn't let the Dolphins down in his first season either. I think it was just obviously changing of the guard, Isaiah Katoa.
Yep.
They've obviously been open that they were willing to sign Ben Hunt. They're active looking in the market, so I feel like just choose the best player for the position. You don't really need to look towards the future. Just choose the best guy for Isaiah Katoa in the number 6 role.
Yep.
And I think that probably is Cody Nicarima.
Yep, best side for now. I agree. I think that you've got to go for the best side to get into a finals run. Look, I think that a big talking point for the Dolphins as well is, experience versus new guys coming in, particularly around the pack. You've obviously got a lot of older heads in there like Felice Kafusi, Mark Nichols. I think Ray Stone is relatively young, but I'm pretty sure he'd be 26. Let me have a look. I'll look that up while I let you fire away here. But I think that's going to be an interesting conversation for the Dolphins this year.
Yeah, I guess with Ray Stone, he acts like an 80-year-old.
27.
27. Jesus, he is young.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's the future of the club, though. So, he's someone who, comes in, fills a role like Mark Nichols. But he's the kind of guy they want in their side, that tough defensive edge. Max Plath.
Yeah.
How good is Max Plath? I think he's the guy who they build the side around. Obviously, Tom Gilbert's back. I like him at front row where you've put him.
Yeah.
Is there a world where they put him on the edge?
I doubt he's going to be starting on the edge. I really doubt it.
Yeah.
I think that, he has to be in the middle somewhere, having a say on where the ball goes and obviously demanding a lot of it too. Nice little ball playing role, which we saw sort of come into fray for the Dolphins with Flegler in the trials before the injury. He sort of had a bit of a tip-on thing. Him and Mark Nichols started, and Mark Nichols ended up scoring a try with a late tip on there from Flegler.
Yep.
So I think that Gilbert front row, it sort of suits to what they were trying to do at the start of last year. So Gilbert front row for me is definitely the go. But I was more so thinking you got Nichols, you got Felice Kafusi, you got Kenny Bromwich, who isn't in my 17, which I think would turn a lot of heads there. But I just feel like you got guys like Oren Keeley, Mason Teague, Tom Flegler, obviously to come back into the side as well. I think that they've got to have a real build to the future sort of mindset here, the Dolphins, and it might mean not so much Felice Kafusi, but maybe Marky Mark, maybe Ray Stone. These sort of guys, Kenny Bromwich, for me, probably miss out.
I personally, Mark Nichols has been great, but Mark Nichols is a Wayne Bennett guy.
Yeah.
I think Kenny Bromwich should come in. He can fill in on an edge and the middle. I think you need more of these mobile guys coming through the middle and edge. You've obviously got Harrison Graham there. I just think, Mark Nichols' days are slowly coming to an end, unfortunately, in my opinion.
Yep.
Are you checking how old he is?
I am.
Let me guess, 32.
35.
Oh, so
Okay. So
he's definitely coming
last
to an end.
year.
I think if you're a club like the Dolphins, what's your expectation? Can you win a comp this year? Personally, probably not. For me, Mark Nichols is going to be a nice plug-in guy, but then where does that leave Kenny Bromwich? Is that the same thing with him? Do you put Ray Stone in to do that? It's a tricky situation because I think you've got to have a lot of balance within the side because I think the young players can get a bit lost without some of these old guys.
So I think the thing with me for Kenny Bromwich is I love Kenny Bromwich. He used to be one of my favourite players for Melbourne with that subtle grubber kick on that left edge to set up a few tries for his outside backs. Super silky. Loved Kenny Bromwich and still do. I just feel like he's slowed down a lot from when you compare 2023 to 2024. He dropped off a lot. And a lot of people don't like saying it, but he sort of turned into a front rower very quickly.
Yeah.
I just don't think that. I think they've got Felice Kafusi there. That's the type of player that Kenny Bromwich is turning into. I just don't feel like you need a second guy like that.
It's true. You've still got Felice there. You've still got a couple of other guys. Daniel Safidi and Tom Gilbert. They're probably just as.
And they're probably playing big minutes too. Like I don't think Gilbert's playing like 40 minutes. I think he'll play at least 55.
Yeah, for
pushing
sure.
60. So I think that I just think that you've got Felice Kafusi there. You've got a guy that's going to play that role. Mark Nichols, he's that experienced guy. Jersey 17, as you can probably see on the slide, I could not fucking pick a guy. Like these three dudes, I'd love every single one of them to be in there. But you got to pick one, obviously, because there's only one Jersey 17. So if I gun to head, it's Oren Keeley, because I love Oren Keeley. Obviously, he was a big part in that Queensland Cup Grand Final and got man of the match there. So definitely one to watch coming into the year. But both Mason Teague and Ray Stone are guns as well.
I love the name Oren Keeley too.
Yeah.
It's such a rugby league name.
So rugby
Tom
league.
Flegler missing out is huge for them. Like, I think he's by far that dominant player in the pack. Like, even like Max Plath has come on leaps and bounds, but Tom Flegler is just that guy that can really lead them. And he's a massive loss for them. I think they've signed well with Daniel Safidi, but when they get Tom Flegler back, I'll be looking at them much more. I wouldn't say seriously. I still look at them quite seriously. I think they're a really nice, tight-knit little group. But
he's the difference maker.
I feel like he is a massive difference maker, isn't he?
Yep.
And Trey Fuller, like if he was fit, I would have had him in the 17. I think he would have been the 6 for me.
Not the 6. I think that he would have been the fullback, and I'd have Hamaso Tabuai-Fidow in the centres.
Something like that. Fitting them both into the side. Hammer's a gun defensive centre. But then if that's the case, if they're going to go that way this year, then moving Bostock in the centre doesn't make sense for me.
It doesn't happen because you obviously got Hammer there. So, look, let's wait and see how this side looks. I think that the big thing we haven't really talked about with the Finns is Marshall King and his fitness. Obviously, a few injuries in 2024. Big one with the back end of season foot injury. Liz Frank seemed to be troubling a lot of players this year and might become more prominent next year, which is scary. But Marshall King, definitely a guy, even with head knocks, big head knocks, he's a guy you want to keep on the field because their hooker depth is very light.
It is very light. Well, who were they playing there? Harrison Graham or Max Plath? Max Plath was filling in. Max Plath can do a job. And if they have Tom Flegler in the side, you could probably afford to let Max Plath be in there for 20 minutes or so. But just with the makeup of their side, I think they really need like a Jake Simkin or a Jordan. I keep calling him Jordan Jenkins. Gordon Jenkins. Just someone who can back up for a couple of games and do a job. He's so key to them. Early in the season last year, that they won games with him there, and then without him, they struggled. So, he's key for them. Him, Flegler, Plath, Hammer.
Yep.
Isaiah Katoa kicking on once again. I think he took strides last year.
Yep.
But we need one more year. He just needs to keep developing his game.
Very, very high on Donahue, though, as well for me. Like, I think that he's not going to be a name discussed in a lot of previews, but I think that he has such a high ceiling. I don't know if he's going to get there next year, but certainly over the next few years, when Nicarima does finally decide to hang up the boots, he'll be the first guy I think they call on too.
Who does he remind you of? Like, what sort of play? I haven't seen much Donahue. Like, in my mind, he's like a Luca Moretti, Kurt Mann.
Yeah. He does fit that utility sort of mold, right? So he came through in the Newcastle system as a fullback 5'8".
Yeah, right.
And he was carving up at Newcastle, and the Dolphins signed him as that fullback 5'8". Put on a bit of size because they wanted to play him, I believe, in the centres. He did trial at centre next to, I believe it was, his name is escaping me. Stocky Dolphins. Little stocky.
Balance Tafare?
No, little stocky winger and centre. Played a bit of fullback for the Broncos. Tessie New, yes.
Fanatesi.
Yeah, for Tessie New.
For Tessie.
Tessie New, right? Trial next to Tessie New for a few games because of injuries and things like that. Looked very, very silky, and everyone thought, oh, this centre's really good. But, like, no one really knows that he was a key part of the juniors at Newcastle and that spine there, and he's probably a guy they probably wish they kept.
Yep.
I think that 14 jersey, I think Kurt Mann's a really nice. I think he's a really nice comparison. But imagine Kurt Mann, you figured out that he's a utility back when he was very, very young, and he's still as raw and as classy and as silky as Kurt Mann was earlier in his career, right? That would have been perfect. That's what Kurt Donahue is. And I think that he is going to be probably, like Tyron Wishart's probably the first one, but he's going to be the first guy that sort of comes through where like utility's his best position, and he's one of the better utilities in like as a position wise. He's that utility out and out sort of thing.
Must
if
be
that makes
the name
sense.
Kurt Donahue, Kurt Mann, Curtis Morin.
That's it. The Kurtz. Battle of the Kurtz. I love Kurt Donahue. I think that he's going to absolutely thrive this year, and he'll probably be a key part to their season too, even though it's probably a big take.
Yeah.
I think that he will be. I think that at that 14 jersey, super valuable.
If he's out, it's going to Kurt.
That was good, mate. That was good. I'll cop that. But yeah, look, obviously the hooker depth was a big thing. But look, obviously as well, how they put their side together, picking and sticking is going to be a big thing for the Dolphins too. If Bostock doesn't work at centre, getting him back there is back to the wing where we know it works as quickly as possible is going to be key for them as well, though.
Do you feel like now that Christian Wolf has officially taken over, then it feels like they've signed really, I wouldn't say boring, but very they've struggled to sign people, the Dolphins.
Yeah,
I
well,
guess.
Wayne Bennett's the ticket maker, right? You know what I mean? Like, he's the guy that everyone wants to play under.
Yeah, and he
thing.
chooses his guys who are very simple, do a job.
Yeah.
Do you feel like this is going to open up a little bit, just a little bit in the market? Like they might take a risk on someone who probably has a lower floor than a lot of these guys.
You know what? I think that I think the Dolphins are a victim of getting everything they really needed straight away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they signed very well in their first 2 years. Going into year 3 now, I think that they've gotten everything they really need, other than that hooker depth, which is obviously a big thing. It's pretty much Harrison Graham is the only out-and-out hooker there.
They probably need a Dylan Brown, don't they?
Yeah, they probably do need a Dylan Brown. It sounds like they're not interested. You know what? The report was that he was Dylan Brown's meeting with the Roosters and the Dolphins this week, right?
Yeah.
Literally 30 minutes later, I finished recording a podcast on it, put it out, and it's reported that Nick Politis has gone, yeah, nah, we're not interested. And the Dolphins have pretty much said the same thing. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens with Dylan Brown. We'll get to that in another podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, they probably do, They need it. They need Dylan
He's
Brown
the
at
perfect
6.
person. Like I think Ben Hunt would have been great for them.
Yeah.
But Dylan Brown's just like the good mix of youth and experience.
100%. And also just like the perfect guy for Katoa as well, because Katoa's are very structured too.
Yeah.
So I think that he'd be perfect for Katoa just to have that more low percentage style of play too, and play off the back of Katoa and what he wants.
AJ Brimson.
AJ Brimson would be mad. Could you imagine if they get one of those Titans guys? Oh,
Someone's got to take him.
Perfect.
Someone's got to take him.
100%. If they can't keep all of those Titans guys, the Dolphins should be the first one to pick whoever they get, whether it's AJ, whether it's JC. I think that the Titans won't get rid of Kinney. I think it'll be one of AJ and Campbell.
Yeah, I think so. I think AJ suits the Dolphins a lot more than JC does. I'd love to see it.
Yeah,
AJ at the Dolphins. You're
Mate,
hearing it.
We're petitioning for it. Mate, Dolphins, where do you see them sitting?
11th.
11th.
Yep.
That's where I've got them too.
Yep.
I think that that's the perfect sort of spot for them. I think that they do. They have a very similar season to last year. They go very well. They're ticking a lot of boxes. Maybe a few injuries here and there. Tom Flegler's going to hurt them being out, I think. And they're probably going to sit around the same spot. They just miss out. So, yeah, 11th's probably the good spot. The bracket, though, is, in the 8. I think that they can make a push if they really try hard this year and if all the boxes are ticked. But I think as well what hurts the Dolphins is the fact that we are talking about all of these rumours about this a vastly different side to what we've seen. And if that is the case and that side does change and it doesn't work, that could hurt them too, sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, a new coach as well. He'll be tinkering with things, what works for him. But it really needs to they need to be going from round 1 and compete all season.
100%. Let's move now to the final team, the Dragons, the Dargans. Get straight into it. They finished 11th last year, 11 wins and 13 losses, very similar to the Finns. Talk to me about the Dragons. Very exciting, the amount of experience they've got walking into the door this year.
I'm actually very high on the Dragons. The Dragons missed the 8 by an absolute bee's finger. So I'm very excited. They've signed very well. I think Clint Gutherson is we did a podcast before just over there in the same studio.
Yes.
And I said Clint Gutherson was my 5th best purchase of the year, signing of the year. I think he just brings such a culture and he's such a Shane Flanagan type of guy. Shane Flanagan just missed the 8 last year, and you had guys like Lomax and Ben Hunt who didn't want to be there, who had great years, played their best footy, and you've got guys who actually want to be there now. Yep. Valentine Holmes, he's a Flanagan guy. He's won a comp under Flanagan. He's got his son playing 5'8", who I think did a really good job last year. He's got Lockie Ilias, who has a point to prove with Daniel Atkinson coming to the club next year. You've got all these guys. Damien Cook.
Yep.
Like, I've heard a few podcasts say, like, I was listening to the Journos podcast, the Daily Telegraph Journos podcast, and they were saying, Cook had an underwhelming season last year. Cook had probably his best season since 2018, 2019 last year.
Yeah.
Maybe 2021.
Maybe. Look,
he was up there. He was up there. He tried really hard, and I think his effort throughout the year got lost in what was a bad season for the Rabbitohs.
Yep.
And I think him coming over to a club, he's one of the fittest guys in the competition. He's a beach sprinter. Did you know that?
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know.
Well, there you go. You learn something new every day.
Sure
Clint
do.
Gutherson, Damien Cook, the fittest guys in the competition. I see their ceiling really high.
Yeah, I do too, mate. I think that obviously getting all that experience walking into the door, you were talking about the impact of some of these key guys, in particular Gutho. I think that he's going to be a massive voice in that side too. Val Holmes, for me, he was in my list for the top signings, but I think like you could sort of group the Dragons signings into one big sort of group rather than characterising it by one player. I think all 3 of these guys, Cookie, Val Holmes and Gutho, are just going to be all categorised as one signing because they're all going to have a big impact experience-wise on what is a very young group or was a very young group before these guys walked into the door. So it's going to be very exciting to see how the Dragons go this year and how they respond to this experience. You were talking about Cook as well. Like, obviously, him having a very good season last year. I think that he was good for sure. I think that he's still he's not at his best in what he was, obviously, when he was an Origin dummy half and things like that. I think it's still like he's got a little bit ways to go there. But in that roaming role as well at South Sydney and just went wherever they needed him, even went to reserve grade, when they got dropped as well for Bristol Pete. So I love Damien Cook. I love him as a character. I'm spewing he's not at the Bunnies anymore. I do like him at the Dragons, though. I think it is a nice, happy ending for Damien Cook in his career too, and I'm sure that he can have that impact to make it that sort of happy ending too at the Dragons. So, mate, let's go into their side and what it's going to look like going into next year. Probably the big standout in my 17 is Cook and Liddell. I think that Little probably starts with Cookie coming off the bench. I love what Cook was doing in that roaming capacity. I think he'll definitely get minutes at 9. There's no doubt about it. But I think when you're looking at guys who can probably last that first 20 minutes and is suited to that first 20 minutes better, Little probably is, in my opinion. Bigger body, a little bit better defensively. I think that Little is probably the guy you want starting, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
I think opposite. I just think Damien Cook was named captain, so I think he'll start on the field. And because he can shift into that lock role, I think because he's so fit, he can start at hooker, then shift to that lock role. I found Little throughout the year last year got a little bit fatigued in defence late in the game.
Yep.
And I think bringing him on playing 60 minutes is just perfect for Little. I think he's got so much upside, but I think whatever you do, it's going to be the right option.
So I think the big thing for me, the fact that they named 2 captains. If Cook was the sole captain of the side, then I'd go he's probably going to start. But because there's Coe's, like it's Cook and Gutho, I feel like you can afford to have one of them off, and I think they're prepared for that scenario.
Yeah.
So I think that for me, I think that Cook could come off the bench. I think that it's probably, in my side at least, the way to go. I think that Little probably will handle that first 20 minutes better. Yeah, he gets fatigued in defence late in games, but that first 20 when you're raw, when you're ready to go, he's unreal and had a huge season last year, Little. And I just don't feel like the result of that season that he had should be to go to the bench too for a guy that is a bit older, that isn't going to be around as long as what Little is going to be in that team.
I agree. Maybe there's a world where they both start and Cookie's actually named at 13. It's very risky, but if Cook's going to start off the bench, maybe 13's his jersey and he just comes off the bench anyway every week.
It's a big call. I don't mind it. I just feel like Eisenhuth, what he did at 13.
He was gone last year.
They took a fucking long time to re-sign him, but I feel like the reason they have re-signed him is because he does fit that 13 jersey a bit well, a bit more size. And Cook just having the fast feet, I think it's better off the bench as that impact guy rather than starting him and making him go through that first 30.
Yeah, he was a beach sprinter.
He was.
Did I mention that?
No, I don't think he did. Yeah.
Oh, jeez, will that joke ever get?
I don't think it will. I don't think it will. Especially as a South fan, I eat it up. Mate, talk to me about the pack. I think that's going to be an interesting little storyline too for the Dragons because we talk about the spine and the experience they've got now. But I think that the pack for me is definitely an interesting discussion because I've seen a bunch of different predicted sides with very different packs. Is what I've got here similar to what you think is going to be named?
I don't think so.
No?
Jack DeBellin, definitely. He's starting number 8, but Francis Molo.
Obviously not there, yeah.
Obviously not there. I think Amre Gula comes straight in. Obviously, you've prepared well.
Yeah.
You've prepared too well here.
Yeah.
And this news has only come after the last couple of days. I think Gula starts if he locks in preseason and gets enough time under the belt. Whether someone else starts and then he kind of works his way into it. But I think Toby Couchman's in for a big year coming off the bench, coming in the middle. I think he's going to play a massive role. Last year, I think he went unnoticed in how well he did off the bench last year. And they've just re-signed him and his brother. And I think just like Flanagan, just getting the best out of someone like him.
So
you really got something on your tip of your tongue, don't you?
Yeah. So I don't think that Toby's going to be in the middle. I think he'll be on an edge. I think that he'll be the next back rower for the Dragons. I think that I think it will be Luch that will probably move into more of a middle role. I've got him starting the year on the edge. But even for Samoa, like we were discussing our sides and what they might look like going into the next few years with that strictly footy pod. Shout out to you, Jared. And we were sort of talking about how the sides will look. And I think that Luch might move into 13.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of X factor. He's got a good offload. Fast feet. Yes, obviously there's a bit of fitness to work on there a little bit. He does tend to get through 80 minutes okay, but I like Luch in the middle with a bit of a passing game. He's, he can make some pretty wild decisions to an attack, but I think if you sort of rein that down a bit, he could be a really good 13 for them post Eisenhuth.
Yeah, I think it's a good shout. Like he's big enough and he's skillful enough to play in the middle. I guess just like I see Toby Couchman just purely as a middle just because, don't get me wrong, I think he could kill it on the edge. But just the way the game's going and we've talked about these lighter forwards. And it's funny, I think I've gone the other way with the second rowers. I think the second rowers are going to be hard line running, tough guys like Angus Crichton last year was just so tough. Liam Martin got the Clive Churchill medal. Angus Crichton with the Wally Lewis medal. He got the Wally Lewis medal, yeah?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure he did. Like just these tough guys on the edges. I think Luciano and Jaden Seward just fit that so perfectly. I do see well where he does play in the middle though. I just think these quick play the balls and speed through the middle, but you've also got Cook there to do that.
Yep.
So maybe... I don't know. I just see so many different combinations you could go with here.
Yeah.
Unlike the Dolphins, I think all the combinations you're like, none of them really excite you.
Yeah.
But with the Dragons, I just see so much potential in whatever they do. Like,
So the reason I've got Toby on the edge too is because I think that Toby's very Shane Flanagan edge. I feel like he just suits that mold, hard running back rower,
Luke
very
Lewis
tough.
type.
Yes, exactly. So I think that it makes sense for that to sort of be his progression.
Yep.
Ryan, I'm not too sure about because he just seems to be in and out of games a little bit compared to Toby. But I certainly think that both of those guys will be the future. How quickly they come in, that's going to be definitely something that's going to be a watch for this year. But the pack's going to be super chaotic and interesting, and I think it's going to change a lot throughout the year too while they work out what they're doing. Anything else that stands out to you there in that pack that you'd probably change or that you think is outrageous, you think it's good?
Not. I think Emery Gula is going to do really well.
Yep.
I think he's just been limited opportunities at Canberra, and I think he's done well in the opportunities he's been given. But I guess back to the backs, I'm really excited for Tyrell Sloan this year as well. I feel like you'd think I'm a St. George supporter by the way I'm talking about it, but Tyrell Sloan just reminds me of Xavier Savage, Luke Brooks, just these players who probably got put into a key role position too early and just really need to focus on less. And I think Tyrell Sloan really took a massive leap last year in his development. Signing Clint Gutherson obviously moves him out of that position, but I think it's also like he'll see it as a good thing rather than getting demoted. I think he'll be like, okay, we've got this gun fullback. Of course, I'm going to shift for him. And we saw Zach Lomax have a career year last year on the right wing. Obviously, Ben Hunt is a massive reason for that, but it just screams to me. There's rumours that Valentine Holmes is going to be on that right edge. Murray Taulagi broke out with Valentine Holmes in the centre, and I think Valentine Holmes just runs that hard line, and he's going to give the platform for Tyrell Sloan to thrive. I think Tyrell Sloan in the offseason put on 8-9 kilos or something. I think that is awesome. He is like, I think his only issue was just choosing when to back up and I think he got caught out quite a bit and just kind of got flustered, dropped the ball when he was trying to get the ball when it probably wasn't on the wing, just doesn't have to think about it.
100%. And, you know, you look at Tyrell Sloan, where does he play his best footy? It's down the right corridor as well. So that move makes so much sense. As you said, it sounds like it's going to be Holmes and Tyrell Sloan on the right side with Sully and Tuipulotu potentially on the left, although I've heard conflicting rumours that Matt Feeney has actually won that spot over Tuipulotu as well. So
that's live. You highlighted that. Can you see?
Yeah,
me?
it is live.
Oh my god!
I can edit things. Yeah, but it sounds like that. It should be Max, I think, actually, because I think Matt went to the Dolphins. Right, so it's Max.
So that's a bit of depth there.
Well, let me break your mind. I've just changed it.
Oh my god!
Max Feeney. I think that he will definitely be thereabouts, but it sounds like there is rumours that he's been training there over Tuipulotu as well. So. Be interesting to see who gets that spot on the left wing, but Tuipulotu, holy moly, he could be the next big thing on the wing.
Yeah, I love Tuipulotu. I loved him at Manly, and I think these bigger wingers are. It's funny the way going forward for NRL is lighter front rowers, heavier wingers.
Yeah,
it's crazy how the game has turned out. And Tuipulotu, he's just that meter guy who he's just a handful every time he gets a ball. So. Brian To'o, very similar to Brian To'o. Probably doesn't have as good a finishing ability, but I think he's still very solid.
So what's funny is I was actually having this conversation with Guru. So at the start of the preseason, Tuipulotu, he looked humongous. He put on so much size. And I sent Guru a photo and I was like, is he playing in the back row or something this year? Is there a positional change I haven't heard of? And he goes, no, just obviously bulking up or something. And I was like, yeah, okay. Like he looks pretty big for a winger because he was fucking humongous, right?
Wow.
Like not even muscly. Like he looks like he put on like 10 kilos or something, right? And then watching recent footage, it looks like he's like trimmed down heaps, but has maintained a lot of that muscle. So he looks.
That's what you got to do to put on muscle. Yeah, you got to bulk up. It sucks.
I know. Trust me. I'm not liking it at all. I got really nice and thin. The beach body was there in the winter, but now the summer's coming around and you got to bulk for footy. And unfortunately, the summer bod goes. So.
I guess I'm related to the Dragons, but I do my podcast like pretty much January to September. Want to look good for camera. Don't want to look and bulk on camera. Yep. And then summer comes around and you're like, I don't want to be bulked in summer.
Yeah, I know.
When do you bulk?
Exactly, I know. It's a tough time for us podcasters out there. It's really, really tough. Look, back to the Dragons. Raymond Taylor-Mariner. His role is going to be interesting. I think he's turned into more of a front rower in this pack too.
Agree. Obviously, you've got Toby Couchman as an edge.
Yep.
And if that's the case, then for Taylor-Mariner has to be a middle.
Do you see Raymond potentially losing a spot to that Loco Pacifica Tonga, one of those younger guys?
I feel like Hamsele might be the guy.
I don't know. Hamsele for me is
He's a gun, isn't he?
yeah. I just feel like his footy at South, but also like I get like obviously injury hurt him and that big injury scare, and he was out for that extended period with that heart condition. I think that yeah, I don't know. I think you've got to keep him. He's so good at his best. People have forgotten that as well. So
Yeah.
Raymond obviously a little bit older.
I guess it's like Flanagan's going to get the best out of these guys. And for Tala Mariner, when he came on last year, like he was a weapon.
Yep.
He did play on the edge though. So
Yes.
maybe for Flanagan, he's purely an edge and he's going to come in when one of these guys are injured. So you keep Couchman in that bench role, or you put him to the start and bring Fatola Mariner onto the bench when one of these guys are injured. I guess it's always tricky blooding a forward very early.
Yeah.
Because they tend to get very small minutes.
Yeah.
And you've probably got an avenue with this bench to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, he probably doesn't make it just yet, but he will get a go throughout
But
the season.
that's the interesting thing. So it's not even just one front rower. You've got Michael Molo, who's played a little bit of first grade here and here. Yeah. So you've got Michael Molo. You've got Hamish Stewart, who's set to be the next big lock forward out of the Dragons.
Good last name.
Yeah, great last name.
Yep.
Viliami Fafita. They've got a really, really nice looking pack in regard to New South Wales Cup. That cup pack is going to be insane. Blake Laurie's there as well. Haven't included Blake Laurie in my 17. That's going to be super interesting to see what they go for here, and they've got so much to use here as well in regards to the rest of the squad.
I agree.
Yeah, sorry. Sort of trying to transition there. That's all right. Look, in regards to the Dragons, mate, is there anything else that we missed? I think the big thing actually that we did miss, is Ilias. Can he run aside? What's the go?
Well, massive for him. This is a massive year for him. Obviously, Daniel Atkinson comes into the side next year, so it's a contract year for him basically. So I've heard reports that Flanagan's going to run the side, and Ilias is going to play 6. Apparently, for the Rabbitohs, Ilias was always a 6, but was kind of put into 7 because obviously Cody Walker's your 6. I heard a lot of reports of that. Obviously, you're a Rabbitohs fan. Do you know much? Is that true?
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how that side looks. I haven't heard anything like that. So
yeah, okay. Well, I thought he was pretty average at the Rabbitohs.
You mean for him to be a utility, like a hooker?
No,
Ilias?
No, he apparently coming through the grades, he was a 6.
Yes, he was. So Tuff was the halfback.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So Tuff, sorry, I was lost.
So coming into the first grade side for the Rabbitohs,
yeah,
he was chucked into that halfback role, which wasn't super familiar to him. Obviously, if you're a half, you're doing similar reps and stuff. But I guess with him, like I've heard reports that Flanagan played a lot of 7 last year anyway. So I heard reports that Lockie Ilias is going to go back to his natural game.
At 6 and Flanagan at 7?
That's what I've heard, yeah.
I don't like it. I think that Flanagan aced the 6 last year.
I thought he did a good job.
I think that if he just did what he needed to do, you don't need your 6s in these sort of sides when you've got all these different stars to stand out. You just need the 6 to play off the halfback. And that's what Flanagan did. He literally just sat in his corridor. He waited for Hunt to make a decision, and then he played and did something off the back of that and focused on his running game. I think that's perfect for what both Hunt obviously needed.
Yeah.
But then Ilias, I mean, what was the big thing and the big reason as to why Ilias had no voice in that side? You had Latrell Mitchell, you had Cody Walker.
That's it.
All of these guys that demand the football. So I feel like it's almost going to be refreshing for Ilias to be a 7, to have a 6 that will completely fall into his plan for the side. But also Gutho, I think, has enough experience now to also sort of sit back a little bit as well and play off his halfback. Not really, because he obviously is very vocal and wants to steer the attack for Para.
Yeah.
But I feel like I think he's experienced enough to recognise that Ilias is probably a guy that, at least for the start of the year, you just got to play to his plan and let him have a voice in this team.
I guess look at last year or how the Dragons have played over the last couple of years. Ben Hunt's played both sides of the field.
Yep.
Flanagan's been the first receiver and given the ball to Hunt. Maybe just both halves are going to be the halfbacks for each side of their field.
Yes.
And Gutho's going to do a lot of running.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. I just feel like it's too much work for Gutho. Like, what was the main concern with Gutho regarding him leaving Para? It was speed. You know what I mean? It was speed and X factor.
It was, but he's also that type of player who he probably is more like his work ethic is amazing,
100%.
but his ball playing is what come leaps and bounds since the start of his
Yeah.
career. And I think he really can dominate with his ball playing. Like we'll see him play more right side because Mitch Moses isn't there.
Yeah.
He was more dominant on the left side. Marcus Sevo scored a ton of tries down that left. I think we'll see for the Eels, we're talking about the Eels again, that they probably score less tries on the left this year than they have in the past. I think we'll see both sides, Gutho going there.
Yeah, look, I agree. I think that Gutho is definitely going to be roaming both sides of the ruck. I think that he'll be more roaming right side, and I look from training footage and stuff like that, it seems like that's what his plan is going to be, to stick with Holmes and with Sloan. But in saying that, I think that, you know, I just doubt that Gutho has the pace at the moment, and I'd love him to prove me wrong, and he's going to be that character to prove me wrong too. But I just don't think he has the pace to keep up with constant movement from right to left for a full 80 minutes.
Yeah, I guess like devil's advocate.
You'd love to see it, but I just don't know.
Teams don't shift left to right, set to set. Like they'll set themselves up, and the fullback's going to be part of it no matter what.
Yeah.
So I think it's more about fitness, and he's probably one of the fitter guys at the club. But I see what you mean. He's definitely going to favour one side.
Yeah.
And he's going to probably let it's hard because Lockie Elias plays right?
Yeah.
And if he's favouring the right, you would have expected him to favour the left?
Well,
Like Gutho?
Yeah. So you would. However, I think their stronger side is their right side.
Yeah.
Because they've got Holmes, they've got Sloan, they've got Luch. Oh, no, they've got Seward. Depends what they do there. Could be either or.
It'll be Seward, yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens there and what they go for. But, yeah, I think that Gutho, it'll be interesting to see. Like, fitness-wise, I don't doubt him, but it's just pace, getting there, getting his body in that position that for an 80 minutes sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that as well, you've still got to sit back and let Ilias have that say still for me.
Yeah.
I feel like Flanagan ace to the 6, as I said before. So I want them both roaming both sides of the ruck. I don't want him to be confined to one edge.
Yeah.
Because that also creates issues compatibility-wise for a halves pairing.
Yeah.
Because if you're playing corridor to corridor and you're staying in your corridor, one, it creates issues for either Val or Sloan if they want to roam.
Yeah.
Because they've got to stay in their corridor all the time because they don't know where the ball's going to go.
Yeah.
Two, it just gets very boring and predictable.
They definitely roam, don't they?
Yeah.
One of them.
Yeah.
Or both.
I think Sloan will be the one that roams because he's just sort of simplifying his game, and throughout the season, Flano, I think, will give him that license to sort of roam and get back used to that fullback sort of role too.
Yeah.
So then by the time that Gutho does finish up over the next 3 years, you'll get Sloan comfortable enough to go back to fullback and kill it there. So, and I also think like in defence, I think that they'll alternate throughout the game too. Like I think that Gutho might sit on the wing for a little bit and Sloan might sit at fullback defensively and he'll mentor Sloan in that regard too.
Yeah.
I think that's what we'll see there for the Dragons. Mate, Dragons, where do you see them finishing going into 2025? No Lomax, no Hunt. A lot of their points came from both of those guys. It's going to be interesting to see how they go this year.
8th.
8th?
Yep.
You reckon they finish in the 8th?
Yeah, I think so, yep.
I don't see it. I think that they've got that the halves pairing is going to take a year to work. Because we're still sitting here thinking about how it's going to work too, whether it's going to be corridor or it's...
Yeah, obviously, a lot of teams don't win comps without a 7.
Yep.
But we saw Newcastle without a 7 pretty much get in the 8. And I think I thought they scraped in the 8, nearly got there last year.
Yeah.
And I think they're better this year.
So, interestingly enough, I know it's a little bit of a different side, but did you see the points breakdown for the Dragons at the end of 2024 as to where points came from and things like that?
No, but I was looking at Ben Hunt's stats today because I was doing some research for Supercoach.
Yeah.
And Ben Hunt had 34 Supercoach try assists.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's not the official NRL app. It's like what Fox Sports go off where it's like you create the space or something.
So let me tell you this. So I think this is right. I heard it on Bloke, so it's their fault if it's wrong.
Yeah.
But 60% of the Dragons' points came from a Ben Hunt try assist or involvement.
There you go.
And then Lomax was scoring the majority of their tries as well. So you pull those both out, 60% of your tries, and then a guy that scores majority of your tries both coming out. Good thing in the sense you even out the ball a little bit to other guys and let other guys have saves and attack. But it's still 60%.
Yeah, it's definitely a worry, but I don't know. I just see them as a better side.
Yep.
And I think like becoming less reliant on a single player is going to be helpful for them.
I agree. Look, I agree with that bit. I think that being...
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Look, I agree with that last sentiment. I think that it's definitely going to be better not relying just on Hunt, and you have other guys that can stand up in the big games and those big moments. You've got a number of them now.
I guess it's also the comp as well. Like I feel like the comp's getting better every year, so they could have a better season as a group, but still do worse on the ladder.
Yeah. That's totally true as well. And it's probably where I sort of see them going, to be honest. I think that if I'm putting a pinpoint dart to the dartboard sort of thing, 13th is probably where I see them sitting.
Yep.
I think that, though, I would probably argue that they'd finish, their bracket would be maybe 8th. So they'd probably just get there to probably, I'd say 14th. I think that's their bracket.
Yeah.
But 13th is probably where I see them finish at the back end of that bracket.
They are favourites for the spoon at the moment. I'll tell you they're not getting the spoon.
Yeah, not a chance. And look, if we sit here and we're wrong, I want to be very shocked with the side that they've got.
Yeah.
I do not see Valentine Holmes and Clint Gutherson winning a spoon, especially with how close Gutho got to winning a spoon last year.
Yeah.
It's like PTSD sort of areas.
He's out to find blood this year.
100%.
I think I do look for insides when I predict that they're going to do well or bad, is they're back up in the positions where I think they're really good at, and the back, like they've got no halves.
Yep.
So I think I can't predict them 8 anymore. I think maybe 10th, just because they've got no one on their roster at all in the halves in depth. Like I think Clint Gutherson probably moves to 5'8" if they have an injury there.
You see, this is so before they signed Ilias, my 17 had Gutho at 6.
Yeah.
And Sloan at fullback.
Yep.
So I was probably leaning towards that direction before the signing of Ilias anyway.
I don't understand why they got rid of Jesse Marschke. Like, he was a good enough backup for now.
He was supposed to go to the Dolphins, you know.
Yeah, I heard that.
For Sean O'Sullivan.
Oh, really?
Yep. So it was supposed to be a swap deal there, but that didn't go through.
Yeah, right.
So SOS, he's stuck at the Dolphins and Jesse's stuck at the Bears.
Yeah,
sounds like. So yeah, it'll be interesting. But yeah, look, that's going to be a scary part of next year. Obviously, there's literally no half depth in their top 30. Yes, obviously, development players come into account, and that young Lycan Toja, I believe is his name, the guy that came in at 6 last year. At the back end of the year, the young kid.
Yeah. He was all right.
Yeah, he went all right though. So that at least they've got him to sort of cover. But yeah, there's no real 7s.
Yeah, and I guess like even edge back row to an extent, like their middles are stretching as it is.
Yeah. Tell you what, a guy that we haven't talked about is Corey Allen, coming back from his ACL.
I've been looking at him, just thinking,
when are we going to get to him? Yeah. I just looked at him then. I fully forgot he was
fullback.
here. Yeah. South Sydney had that massive year as well. Obviously, very unlucky with injury. Roosters, he was considered a centre over there. I think that he'll be a sniff for the 17, to be honest.
I mean, if Flanagan showed anything, he showed he could get the best out of a lot of players, and Corey Allen, as long as his rehab's going well, I think he'll be a nice little backup.
I think it should be all good to go. Let's see how Corey Allen goes, mate. Thank you for hopping on.
No, thank you.
Absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. Second time I think you've been on the podcast now, so you're definitely used to the Big Les treatment.
Yep.
But look, let's see how we go, how right we are towards the back end of the season too. It's very hard to do this sort of thing year in, year out, and especially with how different these sort of ladders look at the end of the year. It's It's really, really difficult to sort of get this down, but looks like I think we've got it pretty close.
Yeah, I think so. 10th, I don't know. I think a lot of these sides, there's so much fluctuation, and one side will come out and surprise us.
100%. I think anyone in the bottom 8 could be 10th, to be honest. That's how close the competition is right now. So we'll have to wait and see, guys. But thank you for hopping on for another episode of our season preview series. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube, become a part of the big LEZ'S League community. Thanks to the lads at, what's the basketball podcast called that they do?
Nothing but net.
Nothing but net.
No, thank you, AJB HQ.
Yes, thank you guys for allowing us to use your space, and we'll see you guys in the next one.